call this special meeting to order. The agenda's been presented, and with the way that the agenda is listed, our first order of business is for the budget ordinance adoption. And then the emergency business. I don't know if there's anything, Rose, since it has to be closed session issues.
I don't think this time.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll spend the majority of our time then speaking to the budget ordinance and some of the work that's been done to come up with the shortfall. I noticed that it was in the Grand Star article to that effect about what the actions were taken. And go ahead for the record on that. Becky, I'd like to ask you, if you would please, to talk about the about the way that this worked out.
How we got it to work out.
How we got it to work out. Same token too, maybe, for the board and myself, all of us, be talking about next year.
Yes.
About what we're going to be facing with that, possibly.
We have laid out and we're ready if the board is, at their pleasure, to adopt the budget for fiscal 2013-14. If you want to flip to on the fourth or fifth page back where it has the breakdown of the line items of the government department. We actually pass a departmental budget that gives the managers a little bit more discretion between line items to do what they need to do. And we came in with a budget at a 46-cent mill rate with total expenditures and revenues of $13,395,593.20. We did have a huge load of our revenue line items with the issue with the U.S. Forest Service PILT. And the tax assessor and I put our heads together about a week ago, I guess now, and tried to hammer out where we could pull some additional revenues. In the reval process, we were actually able to generate, when it all came down to the final assessed value, she had quite a few discoveries that came about during her reval process. She's not finished yet, but we were actually able to generate another about 80,000 actually, even since I talked with you, Mr. Edwards, the other day, in current year taxes. And then we also were able, we did not want to do this because it's kind of a contingency issue, but with the switch over with DMV taxes from the counties doing the collections separately from the tag collections, there will actually be 4 extra months of revenue coming in to the county under DMV. That will be a one-time shot. And that, conservatively, I estimated that at about $60,000 in additional revenue. The Department of Revenue and the State Treasurer's Office had advised us against budgeting for this because it would have built us in a contingency, but we felt like that the fact that the U.S. government had cut us $156,000, actually when the number settled, we felt like that was plenty of contingency enough to pull that revenue in. So then we also looked at her budget for reval. And if you'll recall, this past fiscal year that we're actually closing right now, the budget, the board had passed to transfer $75,000 into that fund. And we thought we would have to put, a year ago we thought we'd have to put another $75 in, but because the board approved doing the reval in-house, and in looking at her estimates on what it was going to cost, we felt like that we would not need to make a transfer into the reval this coming fiscal year. We felt like that the money that had been saved in the past would cover, and plus the $75,000 that we put into the reval fund this fiscal year would float that. So that also helped the budget as well. So we were able to, because we were able to pull in extra revenue from her reval process, even since you were doing your budget hearings, we felt like we were able to cover things. And so we are coming in without having to do a tax increase, which I'm very pleased with. Now, what's gonna be a challenge next year is, as I stated, we won't have that extra 4 months of DMV. We'll be settling into a 12-month year cycle again. And then from all indications, this PILT issue will probably not go away. In fact, we may lose PILT altogether if Congress doesn't reauthorize it again. And if there's not some statutory changes in the formula and how they're dealing with the timber receipt money versus the regular PILT money, we're looking at that loss of $150,000 again. So while we were able to pull it in this year, I'm afraid, and I'm just going to be the bearer of bad news, that we're going to have this same scenario this time next year. We may also have additional bad scenarios as sequestration continues to settle in and we begin to see some issues with funding with the General Assembly. If the Senate gets their way, we could potentially lose another $250,000 in revenue. But from talking with the NCACC, they don't think the Senate's going to pass that budget. Of course, they're sitting here at June 26th and still have no budget. So it's looking like the state's going to be on a continuing resolution interim budget if they don't do something in the next 3 days, 2 days, 3 days. So we're looking at just a gradual, every year it's going to get harder and harder for counties to make their budget unless something changes.
With regard to the continuing resolution, you may have spoken to the folks at the CACC. We in Asheville this last week attended that, and it was sounding more and more like it was going to be a continuing resolution.
Right.
And another thing too that is really spooky is the tax reform. They are really bouncing back and forth with that. I'm so afraid with what that might look like. But everybody says that they'll probably not mess with that because, to put it the nicest way I can, is that they just made it an issue to budget come up with. And hopefully it'll go away and take another direction.
Right.
What's going on
And talking with Rebecca Troutman at NCACC, she said, if you saw the little blurb they sent just for our county, and it was like cut programs and different things, and she said what they're not getting in the General Assembly is that counties have already cut everything to the bone, so there's nowhere else to go. And so she was really hopeful that that was going to go away, that some better voices of reason who've been there and done that will stop that.
Well, one of the things that I know that we do is our delegation, West and Davis, is to keep on top of
Yes.
about it because they do listen when folks call in, and not just them, but basically the General Assembly. If those members realize, that it's a sensitive issue, and I just don't know how this is going to play out. I want to go ahead and say I appreciate Becky in the finance, you and Michelle and Greg. Of course, I know our clerk probably had a thing to do, and everybody for the work that you've done in trying to muster these resources. And I appreciate it because it was really difficult trying to go and look. And I did. I hate to even say it, but 3 hours to go through and try and say, well, maybe this, or
Right.
maybe that. And there was just nowhere to wiggle.
And I was really appreciative of the tax assessor who spent a lot of time with me and trying to help us just hammer out, where are we right now as of right this moment in the reval process. And then, typically people would not say, yeah, I can forego that $25,000 in my fund. I think I can make it. And so I was really appreciative that we were able to take that team approach and bring that in.
And I'm glad that the foresight that, the board made a decision to do that in-house. And it still remains, and the discoveries that have been made too have been pretty helpful. Gentlemen, do y'all have any other comment on the budget? Thank you very much, Ben, staff. And 2 mil. We were really discussing it, it's out in the community. I had phone calls, well, how many more mil are you going up? You know, that was the first thing. And then conservatively, it would have been 1 more mil, but, you know, 2. But 2, we understand where we're at with revenue neutral.
Right.
I've had to learn along the way, so we're still 1 mil away from that at this juncture. But it's gonna be, the next budget, I just want to ask this question maybe while you're here. The next budget, and I know you say, well, it's too early, I don't think it's gonna be too early for us to start talking about the next
We
budget.
need to be working on it now for
Right,
yesterday.
so how about the reeval? You know,
Well,
we are going to see a mill increase,
yes,
but it needs to be understood that that mill increase is going to be because of the reevaluation numbers.
right.
You kind of went us through that.
Yeah, basically, if overall the assessed valuation of the property, with the depressed economy that we've had goes down, then in order to maintain that equilibrium, that's where that revenue neutral rate comes in order to maintain that equilibrium, then the mill rate may necessarily have to go up. But in forgetting any issues of other funding we lose, if every other part of the funding stays level from the other sources, through fees, through federal and state government subsidies, then, you know, the hope is that we would take the mill rate to the revenue neutral, where basically, you know, we're estimating that, we're gonna have basically, about 4.9 million in property taxes to float the budget. Then that mill rate will have to be adjusted to maintain that 4.9 million. And that's with the hope that we don't lose more federal and state dollars. If we lose more federal and state dollars, then it's gonna be another balancing act of looking at each department, taking each department down to the bare nub or minimum of what it costs to operate, and then figuring out where our fee structure needs to be. And then, you know, I always look at my tax as my last resort, as my funding streams. So that's where it's gonna get really tricky, this coming year when we're doing the budget. And that's why I'm saying, you know, I gotta be working on the budget like yesterday for next fiscal year.
And 2, I'm hearing that leadership point of sale is being reviewed.
Yes,
And also, there was another food tax.
food tax.
Was another, so.
Yeah. And we were really fortunate when we started looking at the budget amendments, that I'm gonna be presenting in a few minutes. We're really fortunate that our sales tax actually went up this year, and that's helped fund, you know, some shortfalls in some departments, like in the jail, where we had so much medical expense, and in the sheriff's department where we had some overtime issues, and if we hadn't had that extra revenue coming in for the sales tax, then we, you know, people would have had to go home. Or people, the public would have had to go without protection, police protection, if we hadn't had that extra sales tax revenue. So when they started talking sales tax revenue on the state level, that's when Greg and I got together Friday, and we were like, we gotta call, you know, because we've gotta make sure that they understand that if they start jiggling with our sales tax dollars, we are sunk. Because this was the first year since I've been here that we've actually exceeded what the budget estimate was and what we got the year before.
If I may, Chairman Edwards, on the food sales tax of 2%, being a business owner in Fast, you're already used to paying that, and you charge the customer that. So in the event that they cut the 2% sales tax, the board can appeal to the legislature and put that sales tax back on, which that is not a slap in the face to citizens or business owners. it's already there.
Understood.
So, you know, it's not like Mecklenburg that keeps adding a 0.5 or a 1.5 or more in the big cities. In the county, we were already used to paying the 2% as a business owner. So to me, that would just be, you know, that would be your decision, of course, but I don't think that you would take any slight from the public concerning the sales tax.
I mean, I really try to understand, I did what I could understand about, you know, 2%.
And 4%.
Yeah, they're gonna take that away, but then at the same token, you turn around.
And redo a referendum to get
Yeah.
back
To
to
get
it.
it back.
So what's the benefit? I missed it somewhere.
Well, the state gets no part of it.
Right.
So what they do is they don't get the handling of it. So the 2% would completely come straight to Graham County, eliminating the payback, like when you file your report.
Yeah, they wanted, what they were talking about was, forcing counties to pay their sales tax and get no refund, and that would have been an $85,000 hit for Graham County in the budget right there. Because I never budget for sales tax in the expenditure side, because it's just a washout. And so, if they hadn't done anything with that, we would have lost almost another $100,000, that we would have had to make up some other way.
You know, I don't want to be a pessimist about this, but they're after the money in order to pay off the federal government over the issue of the unemployment. And I don't know what they did today, but they were saying that July 1's the end of it. And then we're paying a surcharge right now. But somehow or the other, the dissolution of the 2% sales tax, and then all of a sudden saying they have nothing to do with it, but somehow or the other, they're going to have a finger in that pie. And I have not figured it out.
Yeah, it's, I think we probably would need to camp out down there and be in every.
They're already
there's
camping
no
down there.
way.
Yeah, all you need to do
Sit
is go
inside
back.
communities to really understand what's going on, but I'm with you on that. They're trying to figure out how to pay that back. And then also, you know, there's like this big push, this is just my opinion, but there's this big push to take the onus of taxation off the state level and the local level. Taxes is taxes, you know, but I guess it's a way to take the blame off one level of government to do it. That's just my personal opinion.
All right, that's about all I have to say. Gentlemen, y'all have any questions regarding the budget? Do we want to go ahead and entertain the ordinance on the budget now, or we want to go ahead and do the amendments?
We want to do the amendments first.
Okay,
Isn't that correct?
It don't matter.
You have to approve the amendments before, if this is the amendments to the overall budget. Yeah, we have to do the amendments first, and then you'll approve the upcoming fiscal year ordinance.
All right, Peggy, you want to present this?
So I've got about 5 amendments, less than this time last year. The first is budget amendment number 19. This is where it was cleaning up the funds. We had some funds that went, or that I'm worried could, when I pay all the bills in July, could go over somewhat. And I've already alluded to, one of the chunks was the jail with all the inmate medical. One of the chunks was the sheriff's department budget overtime. We had some additional monies flow through the Register of Deeds. We had some additional expenditures for repairs and whatnot, for sanitation, some additional items in the health department, which were actually covered by revenues. So the health department is actually so far operating in the black. And then we had some departments that came in under budget. Most of the departments did come in under budget. I just didn't reflect that in the amendment because I like to have a little space in my audit report. If you'll turn to page 2, you'll actually see that even though we took the hit on PILT of $105,000, we got about $387,000 more in revenue than what we had budgeted for. So everything, all of the expenditures that I'm amending for, revenues floated it. And as I was alluding to with the sales tax, that was a big chunk. We actually got about close to $200,000 more than we had budgeted for in our sales tax. Because we had budgeted really, really conservatively last year on the revenues. So basically, budget amendment 19 is just to make sure that all of the funds show that they're not overexpended for the audit report. Any questions on 19? Okay,
Would you like to entertain the motions as we go?
Can we do them collectively or just on one?
I would, in case something comes up as a question on what.
Okay, all right, we have presented to us budget amendment number 19 is presented. We have a motion, we go ahead and approve this, please. Have a motion?
Second.
We have a second. Any further questions or comments? All approved? All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
all right. Number 20 has to do with our 9/11 fund. A couple of years ago, there was a general statute that said that there was two pots of money with 911. There was the wired and the wireless. And then about 2 years ago, they shifted everything over to 911 wireless. And we found out when we did the 911 report this year that any money that was in the old account got to flow into the general fund. So, budget amendment number 20 is just to do a transfer of the $25,130 fund balance that was left in the old 911 that got to go in the general fund,
So that's unrestricted?
unrestricted.
Unrestricted funds.
That was a nice little gesture.
All right, do we have a motion then, we accept budget amendment number 20 as presented?
So moved.
Have a motion. Have a second. Any discussion, question? All approved? All opposed?
Budget amendment number 21 has to do with the Stanley Furniture Rural Center building reuse grant. We pulled in $35,000 in grant money here recently. That was just a pass-through to Stanley Furniture, so this is just to recognize that pass-through of $35,000.
Was that part of the project that we had? Was it the heating?
Yeah, it's that second grant to finish those silos.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's what it was.
And you'll see next year probably another 300 and some thousand that'll flow through next
We
year.
were at Stanley the other day, Andy and I were yesterday actually, and they're starting to commence with the lighting project, which was another part of the rural center grant that they got last year.
Okay, great. All right, do I have a motion, we approve budget amendment number 21 as presented? Motion. Have a motion?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion, comment? All approved? All opposed? Thank you very much.
Budget amendment number 22 is to recognize the monies that are flowing into the EDC, Economic Development Fund, from Stanley Furniture under that first Golden Leaf grant. We received $148,268 in revenues, and also the EDC granted about $43,500. I think it was for some training. Is that correct, Mr. Cable? Ms.
I saw that advertised in the
Yeah.
paper.
So that money came out of that fund and the rest goes into their fund balance. Of course, we're holding money in reserve to make sure if they don't meet their grant requirements, that the money will be sitting there. So that's just to recognize that money.
All right, I have one question with this. Fred, with regard to Golden Leaf and their destiny, General Assembly.
Yes, sir.
Where do we stand with our agreement with Stanley Furniture as a result of that?
To my knowledge, any of the agreements and appropriations, this is my understanding as, things change, you're aware of that, is that any of the programs, any money allocations that were made by an entity such as Golden Leaf are going to be honored. And it's going to be pulled, the idea is to pull that under Department of Commerce. They're eliminating levels of administration in Raleigh, trying to trim down there. But those programs would still be made available. We're not sure exactly in what form yet. I don't think that's the dust to settle on that. But the idea is to consolidate those organizations under Congress.
Okay. You see, only one concern is because it's a seven-year plan
Yes, sir.
that we have with Stanley. And then we found ourselves over the evolution of this thing is that we have to go to Golden Leaf to ask permission.
As we
And
did.
my question is who do we go to now? If in fact Golden Leaf is dissolved.
And that's a question I don't think anyone knows the answer to yet, because whenever we are, as the chips are falling in Raleigh with the reorganization, the proposed reorganization of some of these organizations, we're gonna see where that's gonna end up. Part of the reason for the continuing resolution that we're probably gonna see come out of the General Assembly for our state budget is the battle within 4 organizations like the NC Rural Center and Golden Leaf. So more to come on that, but there's no definite answers as of right now that I have.
I have seen years that you took to October to do the budget. Remember those? In the public school setting, we were there. October. Okay. All right, any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve the budget amendment number 22 as presented? Have a motion? Second. We have a second. Any question or comment? All approved? That is, motion carries. Thank you very much.
One more item is the amendment to the capital project ordinance for the transit facility, and I need to apologize up front, I just realized there's a typo on it. We've been authorized for an additional $95,000. If you see, there's a column entitled Amendment Number 2. To bring that total project in I didn't do my little formula right in my Excel spreadsheet. It should be a total project of $745,000 in expenditures and grant revenues of $745,000 to finalize this grant. And I think there'll probably be 2 more pay estimates coming through. Yeah, July and August, and that'll be finalized.
Okay, so you're talking about the difference between the 650 and the 745?
Yes, I forgot to change my formula.
Okay, so
So-
how do you want to do this?
We can go ahead and pass it, and then we can sign it at the next meeting as the correction.
Right.
It doesn't matter about the signature, just as long as you sign it in the minutes. I mean,
Okay.
you approve it in the minutes.
All right, it will be specified that that change is made, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. That's one mistake that I heard. That's doing good.
I
All
think the
right,
local government commission actually called me when I was doing that, so I got nervous.
there you go. That's what it works. All right, we have a motion that we go ahead and do the amendment for the capital project ordinance for Grant County. Okay, we have a motion? Second, and of course, this is with stipulation and changes. All right, motion second, any comment, question? All approved? All opposed? Thank you very much.
Just another, for your information as the Board of Commissioners, because you're the oversight board, the reason I was on the local government commission today was, I had a question about the Graham County Rural Development Authority, because they ramped up again this past year, and I was, in the back of my mind, I was thinking they're gonna need an audit. So I'm gonna be needing to get with that authority to advise them that they're gonna need to get an audit done, so that it can be, those transactions can be pulled into the Graham County General Fund or General Government Audit Report. So here we go with another level of audit oversight, but that's just the way it goes.
Right.
Any questions?
And this will just about be the closeout for you, want it? Great. Y'all done a tremendous job, so appreciate you.
Software's going live on Monday, so we're excited about that process.
Do I get access to that?
Well, you sure can.
I mean, just to watch, I mean, not any, what they call it, read on? Read on? Okay, that sounds great.
Work that out.
And when are we doing the training?
Well, they did 2 days of training. Well, it was just for purchase orders. We did
Okay.
two days of purchase order training, Tuesday and Wednesday last week. And then they're gonna come Tuesday and Wednesday next week to train Michelle and I, so you're welcome to come and learn how it works.
I have a 63-page manual, I'll be happy to send over to you.
That's just one section. It's actually, there's like 10 sections of 63 pages.
It's kind of like my brother-in-law, he's an engineer, he fixes it, and then if there's any parts of it, he reads it. That's the truth. We put a wheelbarrow together one time, and had 5 pieces of it. Wheelbarrow worked. Anyway, all right, thank you very much. All right, we'll go now, we've entertained all of these, we did the motion to entertain the amendment for the capital project. We've gone, we've had a presentation of the budget. So with this, we'll go ahead and go through this. There's a lot of signatures we'll have to have for it, so we don't want to escape from here until all of those are done.
We'll need
I'm sorry, I
to,
have one more thing. I've got the contract for the North Carolina Forest Service for the $57,985, which was budgeted in the budget, and we spoke about in the budget hearings.
Yes.
And we just have to, every year, have to sign off on the.
That doesn't have to be approved, because that will be in the approval when you adopt the budget.
Okay.
Because it's part of your budget ordinance.
Yes.
Okay.
You just,
All right, so this is done, this is just signature.
no, you need to adopt the 2013-14 fiscal year budget.
All right, do we have a motion that we adopt the 2013 fiscal year, 13-14 fiscal year budget ordinance? Have a motion? We have a second. Any further comment or question? All approved? All opposed? Motion carries. So that the budget is in place. Praise be. All right, with that, is there any other business?
I don't have any more.
Okay, under this, I guess under special meetings, we'll go ahead and adjourn. Our next meeting will be our regular meeting on July 17th.
17th, I think.
I think it's July 17th.
15th or 17th, just to make sure. I have it wrote down,
Yeah, it's
but July 15th.
July 15th. Okay. All right, we have a motion to adjourn. Have a motion? Have a second? All approved? We stand adjourned. Please come by, make sure you get